So we've just finished our phone conversation. It's 8:30. Here's a quick pan around the campsite. There's the family's accommodation. Over there is a hut that we're not quite sure of the purpose of. Could be the warden's hut, but there's no warden anywhere near. And then the compost toilets are beyond that hut. Here obviously is the substantial picnic area, each bench with a barbecue pan. And this beautiful sandy, slightly gravelly beach where I was swimming earlier, where that duck is still in residence. I haven't put him off clearly. We're at the south end of the island, so you can get the boat in from the south or the north, which is on the far side of the island. That is mainly jungle, I think. I don't think you can get down there. And that's our little beach. And I'll just show you where we've set up camp for the night. That's been our picnic table. And in this little glade, Bertie's getting ready for the night ahead. That's Daddy K's accommodation on the right, no messing about for him. And there's Bert experimenting with his Christmas present from last year. It's 7:30 and Bertie and I have just arrived at the Lookout Bothy on the northernmost tip of Skye. When we approached it, our hearts sank when we saw those two tents, because we thought that must mean that the bothy itself was fully occupied. We have got our tents with us, but it transpires that no one is actually staying in the bothy itself, for reasons I don't quite understand. They're happy to tent, so we shall be inside tonight, and I'll show you around in just a moment. That's the view out towards the Outer Hebrides, where we're heading in the morning on the first ferry. This building was built in 1928 as a Coast Guard's lookout post, and its main window was blown in 2005, and the authorities then asked the Mountain Bothies Association if they would like to adopt it, renovate it and open it up for overnight stays, which is what they've done, and that's why we'll be in there tonight. Our journey has come to an end. After 2.5 days of travel, we finally arrived at our hostel in the Outer Hebrides. Where we shall be for 4 nights. Not going very far, to be honest. Most of what we need is fairly close to here. That's the common room, obviously. Absolutely weeing down at the moment, but we really don't care because we've had a long journey, we're very tired, and we're quite happy just to play on our smartphones. And I'll show you someone who's doing just that now. Here he is. This little lad could not be happier. His charging is now up to about 56%. He's doing all his socials with his Yui, and he couldn't be in a happier place. There we go, and that's our beds. Oh, beds! What a treat. So there we go, and I go down and do my diary now. Any notes or messages for Mum and Polbert?
Love you, babe.
We're on Scalthway on the Isle of Harris in the Outer Hebrides. That clearly is a lighthouse, the Island Glass Lighthouse. But just as we were leaving, I happened to spot this building over here, which, as you can see from the sign on the door, is the Scalthway Bothy. I'm just glad I didn't bring my toothbrush with me. Let's have a look and see what's inside, shall we? It's not bad. I mean, in truth, I think this is more a shelter for walkers rather than the full, overnight jobby. I mean, Bert says he wouldn't mind it, but really wouldn't like being on the floor because of all the vermin. I don't think you can get many vermin in here, to be honest. Yes, there is a lack of a sleeping platform, but to be honest, a small part of me wishes I'd found out about this in advance. There we go. We're staying tonight in Renegadale, which is a village that up until 1991 was only accessible via the sea or the Postman's Path, which we've just walked along. And we're staying in what's called a Gatliff hostel, which is a very simple hostel, one of half a dozen operated in the Outer Hebrides by a trust. It reminds me a bit of youth hostels in England in the 1970s, and by that token I quite like it. Just show you around briefly. I don't think anyone's in. Here's the kitchen. Signs telling you to do things everywhere. But quite well equipped. Thankfully also the place does have a shower. I thought that was so, but panicked slightly when we arrived here. But there it is in there. And upstairs are the dorms, plenty of space for everyone. And then in here is the common room, which is really sort of austere. Sort of place where people just sit in silence all evening. And people also fill out their registrations. 30k busy doing the paperwork. I could spend a lot of time reading all these maps and books, I have to say. Pity we got here so late, but all present and correct then, Bert? Looking good. Now on the west coast of Lewis, and here's the bothy that I sought to book, but was unable to. Let's go and take a look. I've already checked, the people who are staying tonight aren't actually in residence yet, so I can have a little nose. I mean, it's very sweet, but I have to say there's barely enough sleeping platforms for two. Might have been a bit of a squeeze for me and Bert. I suppose he could have gone on the floor, but oh, it does have a big but. Sea views don't come much better than that, really, do they? All you'd hear here is the waves. You certainly wouldn't want to go for any after dark wanderings, oops, because the cliff edge is just yards away. Oh well, it wasn't to be. They say that an Englishman's home is his castle. Well, here's a case in point. Possibly the smallest castle in Europe, and indeed the world. The scale is very confusing. It's only about 8 feet tall, and it was built by an architect in the 1950s, but no one knows quite why or what he did with it. One thing's for sure, he must have been fairly slim to get through the door. It does remind me of a Second World War bunker with all its brutalist concrete. Inside there are some shelves for shells, and I suppose if you're really keen you could put your sleeping mat down there, It does look rather like a stone-lined coffin, doesn't it? Pretty austere sort of place. But it does come with a fantastic sea view, even on a rather grotty afternoon like this one. An extraordinary place. Really merges into the stony surrounds, doesn't it? So we're just arriving at our penultimate night's accommodation in the shadow of a mountain called Sullivan over there, which I'm very confident will be free of the low cloud tomorrow. This is the Suliag Bothy, very popular with people doing the ascent, because walking here does trim a little bit off the 12-mile route and makes it a little bit more manageable. And here's the main Bothy man himself. Likes nothing better than a night with vermin. Mr. Birdie Kirkwood. He's going to show us around the accommodation. Sound of that latch is always so evocative. It is a little bit gloomy. You do find yourself reaching for the lights, but of course there aren't any. And also if you boot those spades down there, it gives yourself the heebie-jeebies. This is the common room, I think. Although there are some sleeping platforms as well. And then in the other half of the building, it's just on one floor, is what looks like a more recently refurbished bunk room with room for another 6 sleepers. Don't know if those sleeping bags are going to be claimed later or what. And as I say, from the window you have the objective for tomorrow. So yeah, a little bit gloomy, not going to lie. But it's a bit of a gloomy day, but quite glad to be here. I think we'll be quite cosy. No one here as yet, but who knows who's going to turn up later on. We shall see. Here he comes. So close to his final ever summit on Sullivan. I've saved the best till last. This is the last major mountain I'll ever climb. Who's the best? I believe I'm reaching the top of the mountain. It feels good. The end.